Fame Adjacent. I am so thrilled to speak with Sarah Skilton today. She is a book blogger with Barnes & Noble, as well as the author of 2 young adult novels, Bruised and High and Dry. Her first adult novel, Club Deception, was published in just 2 years ago, and now you're out with another one. It's time. Mm-hmm. Fame Adjacent is out, and I am very excited to speak to you, Sarah. Thank you so much for appearing on Reading with Robin.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you for having me. I've been listening to your podcast for the last week or two, and it's very fun to be able to
You must be sick of me by now.
It's fun to hear your voice. It's been in my head, yeah.
Oh, it's so much fun to hear yours. And Sarah and I had a little chit-chat before the show, and sitting down and reading Fame Adjacent, I got a sense of the narrator. Well, the narrator is Holly, but you know, what the author might sound like. And this is one of those books. My daughter said to me, Mom, this is such a Robin book. You must read this book. We love working with your team at Grand Central. They are
good,
top-notch. And
yes,
Emily told me they are wonderful, and they adore you. And Emily said to me, she let me have her copy, her galley, which wait till she sees what the cover looks like. Because when I move into a book, I move into a book. Just so my kind of book. It's funny. There's so much to talk about with this book. Some real serious topics also, and just your humor. It's just so my. That's what it was. I think she said, Mom, this is so your kind of book, and
thanks.
And I'm so thrilled to share it. The listeners, go to sarahskilton.com for more information, and also from there you can get to her Facebook. And I had to reach her all different ways because of my scheduling snafu, so I can tell you where she's on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, and everywhere that you can find authors lurking. You have a great website.
Thank you. And I'm sort of new to Instagram a little bit. At least it feels like it's new, but I've been having so much fun posting old photos from the 90s.
Isn't it fun?
Since the book is very much a love letter to the 90s. Takes place now, but the main character, was on a TV show in the 90s. And so I went through the vaults. I went up to my parents' place in Palm Springs, and I went through my old photo albums to pick out some of the most, horrifying and vicariously embarrassing ones to show people all week leading up to the launch.
Isn't it fun, like things that you think are horrifying, and at certain times they certainly are, then you look back on them fondly, and it's like, oh, this would be so much fun to show, and for your readers to get a sense, it's a whole other piece of you to share. And all of a sudden the 90s was a long time ago. I mean, this is in the book. You talk about Holly, but there's a 25th reunion of a show that she was involved with. Well, talk about the spark for the book and where you go from there. What should the readers, there's never spoilers on the show, as you know. So what should your readers know about Fame Adjacent and our heroine, Holly?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was 11 in 1990, and
I'm doing the math.
1989. Yes, I'm actually 42, which is the answer to the universe and everything, right? So I'm expecting to get some answers when I turn 42. I was like 11 in 1989, and that was the year that all new Mickey Mouse Club debuted on the Disney Channel. And the Disney Channel was not in every household. You had to have a certain cable package. I don't really know how it works, but I was obsessed with that show. It was, it was the launching pad of so many big stars. But I didn't actually watch it when those big stars were on it. I watched the first couple of seasons, and afterward, 5 or 10 years later, NSYNC was formed, and Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake and Christina Aguilera, and Carrie Russell and Ryan Gosling, and all these big stars came from that show.
Right?
And I thought, well, what happened to my favorite Mouseketeers? How come they're not famous? And I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And it kind of just sort of sparked this idea in me, what would their lives be like? What would it be like if, when you were a kid, you were on a TV show, just like all the other castmates, but you were the only one who didn't go on to become famous? And what does that look like? And how do you kind of move on and let go of that fact?
You don't.
Or does it color your life from then forward? And I thought the only way I can figure this out is if I write it, because, that's sort of the spark for any book, right? What if? And then
I love the what if. And and we see Holly at she's at rehab center, right? Or was it called something cool?
It's like it's called Prevail with an exclamation.
Right, Prevail with the exclamation. Right,
I mean it. Yes.
It was so clever. I remembered it was something so clever. I read it a few weeks ago, so now I'm trying to remember. But but I know I felt like, wait, why didn't she make it? Why wasn't she one of those? And until you just enumerated all of those stars. I mean, I remember the Mickey Mouse Club. Well, not the originals. I'm not that old, but I remember watching those in reruns. But I do remember when the show came back out, and then in the years since, thinking about all these people who got their start on that. That is a lot of talent right there.
It's sort of ridiculous, to have that many, and not just like they're kind of famous or you sort of recognize them, but globally famous.
Yes.
Where just people around the world have seen them sell out stadium arenas and be on, Emmy and Oscar winning things. And it was sort of strange for me to kind of see the kids because I sort of felt like when I was 11 that I sort of felt like I grew up with them a little bit.
Yeah, they're like your friends, sure.
Yeah, a little bit. And my friends and I would just discuss the show in great detail every day after school, and we would just imagine what it would be like to be a Mouseketeer. And it was fun. And there were all these shows in the 90s that were sort of getting into the teen audience in a sort of a new way. There was Beverly Hills 90210, and there was Kids Incorporated, which was also on the Disney Channel, and even this little-known soap opera called Swan's Crossing. And that's a very niche thing. Not too many people remember that because it only aired for one summer. I
only remembered it because I read about it on one of your someplace. That's the only reason I know. Or maybe it was in your book. Or the acknowledgments or something. That's the only reason I knew. Yeah, I don't profess to know that.
Shout out to it.
You have to. Those are the things, the things that we grew up with. I have my references, and it's the 50th anniversary of the Brady Bunch coming up this fall. I will be doing something big. Yeah. But you did, I grew up with Marcia, Jan, and Cindy in a way.
Sure.
Those are
and
the
you feel kind of protective of them. You want to know what they're up to. And,
yes. What happened? Why didn't this one come back to the reunion? Right, when they do the reunion shows, or what happened? So this was your spark, and I'm speaking with Sarah Skilton. You can visit her site at sarahskilton.com, and the book is just out today, and Sarah will be having her launch party and signing at Barnes & Noble in Valencia, California.
That's right.
So if you're near there, or you can sit in traffic getting there at 7 o'clock, leave now.
And if Santa Clarita is a little bit off the grid, I'll also be at the Ripped Bodice, the country's first romance-only bookstore, on April 18th, which is a Thursday night for their romantic comedy night, and they have a bunch of stand-ups come out. It's always a fun time.
Oh, I wish I was coming to that. That's so up my alley. That sounds like a lot of fun. Will they be doing a Facebook Live? Anybody filming for you?
I'm not sure. They might be.
Okay.
I can find out.
I want to see that. Now listen to me whine. I love it. Well, Fame Adjacent is out. I will have to comfort myself with knowing that at least I got to read the book, and if I can't be there on April 18th or tonight, those sound like so much fun. And there's so much to talk about in this book in terms of well, you wrote in the book something about life before email in 1994, and all of a sudden I was thinking, I think I joined it in 96, but I can't, who can remember a world? Just trying to reach out to you a few minutes ago, I was like, okay, how many ways can I get Sarah in 2 seconds?
Right.
And the addiction part of it, which raises hand sheepishly. So let's talk about Holly and what brings her into this rehab center.
Yes.
How does she hand over her device? And something's happened with her niece and her sister. So share a little bit about that too.
Sure. So she's definitely at a crossroads. She found herself sort of maniacally Googling all her former castmates when she discovered that they were having a televised reunion and that they had not invited her. So she's feeling very indignant and very angry. She hasn't been in touch with them for a couple of years, but she figured when push came to shove, they would at least, speak up on her behalf. Oh, we should invite Holly. But nobody did. And so she started Googling them, and it became an obsession. And she started her own Ask Me Anything thread on Reddit, the dreaded AMAs.
Yeah.
And she just couldn't stop. She was up all hours. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't eating. She wasn't leaving the house. She was just posting on Reddit. And eventually her family sort of does an intervention, and this is all sort of at the, before the events of the book start. And so now she's in internet rehab, and she's kind of learning to go back to a life that many of us are starting to lose memories of, honestly. I didn't have email until college, and I feel kind of lucky. I feel lucky that my childhood was not online, that I didn't have all those things that we sort of had to, we were forced into taking life at a slower pace. The mail came once a day, and then you could just get on with your life. You didn't have to keep refreshing your inbox every 5 minutes, feeling frustrated or stressed out or anxious if you didn't see what you were hoping to see. You were just sort of forced to go on.
That was how it was. And funny enough, that's how life was. But, of course, I remember hearing from the generations past, saying that how crazy we all were, or whether we were going to 3 and 4 activities after school, or whatever the next level of nuts was, we were there.
Yeah.
But now that seems like such a simple time. And, I mean, the newspaper used to come twice a day, and then it was just one edition. But, I mean, it's 24. When I watched the Today Show, I'm like, I already heard that, knew that last night. That's not new. You guys are behind. I mean, so you can't, anything that any of this information you're getting, it's just coming fast and furiously, and you're right.
And there's
refresh.
no escape. You don't have to, you can't wait until tomorrow's headline. The headline is refreshed instantly in real time.
Right.
So when do you turn it off? I mean, I even remember, this is dating me, but at night, so we had like maybe 10 channels, when I was first growing up. And at 11 or whenever time at night, this was in Illinois at least, color bars and tone would come on. It was like, okay, you have to go to bed now. There's nothing else being broadcast. It's done for the night. And now it's like that's unfathomable. There's always something on. There's a million channels, and they're broadcasting 24/7, and there's no break from it. And it's harder and harder to sort of schedule a break or make yourself turn it off. Because it's always there. It's always sort of lurking.
Especially if you're...
this idea...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would love to go to internet rehab and just have analog life for a little while and write letters and have to wait for them to arrive and take my photos to be developed.
There is something to that, right? Because, and then you were a little more careful. I mean, we talk about, I remember sending the pictures away to Mystic Labs, and you had to wait, and that envelope would come. And the other thing, too, was that you wouldn't take, 100 in a row and pick out the one good one. And you saw what came back, and we used to get up to change the channel, so we had more exercise in those days. It was, there were a whole host of things. I did see on the Today Show, funny enough, that woman who gave up her phone. It was some kind of, forget what she's being paid to do. Yeah, and she gave up her phone. It's some kind of project, and she's popping on once in a while to talk about what there were a whole bunch of rules, and she's being paid to do it. Yeah, you can look that up in your spare time. So Holly finds herself in rehab. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Holly and more of Fame Adjacent with Sarah Skilton. Again, visit her website at sarahskilton.com. Find her on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I think we're about, what did you say, are you 40, 42?
Yeah.
So we're 14, 15 years apart, and that's just enough where I'm like, wait, 90s fashion, that was early spit up from what I remember with my children. Like, it's such a different reference because if you say 80s, immediately I can tell you. I was in college, and I remember what I was wearing, but like 90s as a young mother, I don't know. It's very different. So it's fascinating that 10 or 15 years can make such a big difference in references.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, in all my high school photos, I'm wearing plaid flannel, and that was comfortable. I'm glad that was my teenage fashion, It was like, throw this on and be easy and all that good stuff.
I don't really remember that. Mine was like sort of punk and like new wave, I guess that's what we were.
And that's cool too.
Yeah, and that's back. But, so when you talk about 90s retro, that's just some crazy stuff. So we were talking about Holly in rehab and her family's intervention and this idea of being fame adjacent and what that looks like and how we manage in such a digital world and what life was like before that. So what else? And let's talk about Tom because he's somebody that she meets while she's there, and talk about their story a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a romantic comedy, and it also has a road trip in it because she discovers she needs to get across the country if she's going to crash this televised reunion that she's not invited to with all her castmates and confront them. And she meets another patient at internet rehab named Tom, who is a good-looking fella, and he's very practical, and he's very grounded, and he does not think she should crash this reunion. He thinks it's like a high school reunion and she should let it go. But he does end up having to, help her out, try to get her across the country in time. So they have some antics, and they start to, fall in love a little bit, and they get to know each other and open up to each other. And a lot of it was just fun for me to have, the two of them be the lead characters throughout the story, because I could really dive deep into their pasts and what, their hopes are for the future and how that might include the other person.
So much
fun to have sort of a traditional rom-com aspect to it.
I love her. I mean, there's nothing like a rom-com. It's one of my favorite things, and sort of the soundtrack of that rom-com, whether it lyrical or conversational, is something that I really enjoyed. I love the pace of this book. The dialogue, and really just friggin' hilarious stuff, and just the being in Holly's head was a really familiar place for me. I identified with a lot of it. In some places, in some senses, I'm always waiting for an intervention myself. You never know what's around the corner, do you? So, are there plans for a screenplay? You live out there in Hollyland.
No plans at the moment, but I think it would be one of those things where if somebody decided to go for it, they could probably find a lot of former 90s kid stars to do cameos or to play some of the roles.
Wouldn't that be so fun? And I don't usually ask that question, but you're out there, and it just lends itself. So just really imagine it, and it's kind of like you've got the screenplay really written. It's like done for somebody. I think so. And what else do you think would be something? I mean, to me, this is a fun book to pick for a book club. There's a lot to discuss, and people, just there's this nostalgia, I guess, for the 90s. I mean, before I turn around, it's going to be for the aughts or whatever. I'm not even saying that.
I know.
That doesn't really feel really great.
Oh, I would say if people sort of like the behind-the-scenes aspect. So I've lived in L.A. since '99. And I've worked in the industry in various random capacities. And I just love sort of either memoirs or fake memoirs or tell-alls. And if people enjoy that sort of behind-the-scenes glimpse, I have a couple books to recommend. Sure. Shamelessly, I will plug my previous novel for adults, which is called Club Deception. And that one takes place at an underground magic club, and there's a murder. And you have sort of the four main characters who each get their own, chapters throughout and how their lives intertwine. And that's loosely based on the Magic Castle in Hollywood, which is a real, actual private club for magicians. My husband belongs to it.
I see your husband. I love that. I mean, I can't even imagine what that must be like. I mean, there's a lot of funny things about that, obviously. Where is he? Where did he disappear to? Where is Joe?
My son. We can have a quiet conversation. But, yeah, it's great. So all those years of sort of eavesdropping on the boys at the Magic Club and then letting my imagination run wild. And so it definitely has that behind-the-scenes glimpse of life on stage and life as a magician's wife. So that was a ton of fun for me to do, and that was very LA specific.
Yeah.
But I can't recommend enough this book by Amy. I want to say it's either Popple or Pepple. It's Amy
Popple.
P-O-E. Yes, Popple.
Amy Popple. She's a dear friend. Limelight, right?
Yeah. Limelight. I love Limelight so much.
Did you read Small Admission also? Her first one?
I haven't yet, but
so
I'm
good.
Sure I will. Yes.
Well, it's especially hilarious. Speaking of childhood stars, I grew up on Long Island with Lori Loughlin of the college, of the USC fame. Now, I know I think I'm like going to be like Elwood's, and she's in my pledge class, and she's another pledge class. But Lori went to the other high school. We're from the same town, and I don't know, the way they districted us. So we didn't go to high school together, but she's one of the Smithtown girl, or Hop Hog, really, she was from, Makes Good. So then, of course, the Smithtown News did a whole story. I'm like, oh, we were all so proud when she was on soap opera, I think. Before Full House, something.
Yeah.
But anyway, why did I
crazy.
digress so far? There was a reason.
That's all right. People that you've known for a while. So you've known Amy Popel.
Oh, Amy. Sorry, Amy. Yeah, no, I love Amy. Yes, we've hosted her a bunch, and we did a big party for Small Admission and then Limelight. So, yes, so you're recommending, I will make sure Amy knows that.
Oh, my gosh. Limelight, I thought it was hysterical. It had so much heart.
Fabulous.
I was riveted. So funny. So, like, just the family dynamics were so wonderful. The humor and... Yeah, it was great, and I was really impressed how she sort of did the faux reviews from the different real life publications because it felt like so real.
She's very talented.
That's exactly how the New Yorker would sound, and that's exactly how the reporter would sound. It was great.
She has quite a background. In fact, when she did the book launch for Small Admissions, she read a scene which was hilarious with I think it was one of her friends, I'm not sure. So when we hosted her here, we do an author series, which I'll plug, third Tuesdays in Rhode Island. It's called The Cardigan Connection. And Amy and I read, but I didn't rehearse it, but I had seen her do it in New York, so I just jumped right in. We had a blast. And
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so I'll make sure, we can talk off air, but if you'd like to get her a copy of Fame Adjacent, I know she would love it, right, Amy?
Oh,
yes,
I'd be
Amy
honored.
says yes.
Yes, I'd be delighted.
So you're recommending Limelight, and was there another one? Or
absolutely. There's a book called, and this goes into the category of like a pretend memoir, and it's called Movie Star by Lizzie Pepper. And Lizzie Pepper is the character, but it's actually written by Hilary Lifkin.
Yes. I didn't read it, but I have it here somewhere.
It's terrific, and it sort of envisions what was really going on with a fictional version of Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise, and I am convinced that she got it dead right. I'm
sure she did. Well, that's what happens.
My
usually,
absolute summer read that I always reread.
It was that. Yes, was that? I don't know. It was a couple of years ago, or unless I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, and I devoured it, and I'll read it every year or two because it's like this chocolate. I can't.
That's how I used to do Gone with
how
the Wind.
It is.
Right? It's like the summer. I have my summer favorites. I usually usually in June or July and ask people which books they revisit in the summer because that's one of my favorite things, just things that we like to do around books. And, whatever when we bring back a beloved book or whatever there's a word that I'm losing. I'll come back to it. I must have been in the 80s there. I'm speaking with Fame Adjacent author Sarah Skilton, and this is a book that you're just going to love, soak up, and share with people. It's just a terrific book, and it's just out, and it is such a pleasure to get to speak to you. What's on your list? What's next for what you want to read, and what are you writing? What are you working on?
Yeah. I just finished Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which was also another Fame one, which I loved. And I just popped over to the store yesterday, and I picked up American Spy by Lauren Wilkinson, which was great.
I don't know the book, but I know the author. Okay, good.
And then IQ by, I want to say, Joe Ide. It's IDE, but I don't think it's pronounced Ide, so I'm making a mash of his name. Sorry about that.
You got it right. It sounds right. There's a strong effort if not, but it sounds like that's what it would be.
So those are on my list that I've been chomping at the bit to get to.
And never enough time.
I've got so many books that I'm dying to get to, but those are the 2 most recent that I picked up.
Thank you for sharing. Listeners love to know what the authors are reading. That's always a favorite. People want to know. And you can't get to all of them. I love when I often get the try and stump Robin. What are you reading? And I'm like, well, it's impossible. It's just impossible to get to everything. And that's why when my daughter says, you will love this book, do not miss Fame Adjacent, I say, you're right. If you say I will love it, and she just, we just both loved it. And so we love sharing those kinds of books. And
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And there's also nothing like a road trip. I mean, actually, before I let you go, talk about something when you're writing about something like a road trip. What does that, as a writer, allow you to include in a story that perhaps wouldn't have been included in a storyline otherwise?
Well, you have this sort of ticking clock trope automatically, which propels the plot, and it also forces your characters to be out of their comfort zone. So they're traveling, they're not on familiar ground, they're with somebody maybe they're not too sure about. So there's all sorts of sort of tension in the air. And I also added, just to make things extra difficult for poor Holly, they're low on cash. So it's like, okay,
of
are
course.
they going to run out of cash? Are they going to run out of gas? Are they going to, are they going to run out of time? Are they going to make it in time? So it definitely have, that element of, okay, we got to go, 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 go.
Yeah,
and then they sort of find themselves, figuring out, okay, well, what can we afford? Do we have a place to stay? What are we going to do tonight? And that allowed me to go to some kind of slapsticky spots in the plot, which I enjoyed doing. And it just sort of reveals who they are when they're under duress, because they have to make these snap decisions and they have to figure out how to work together and partner up if they're going to get through this.
Right. It's all fun and games when you're in rehab, but when you get on the road, it's a whole other story.
Right.
And I love that. That was a great way of putting it. And, again, just a treat of a novel. And I am so thrilled to share this with the listeners. It's Fame Adjacent, Sarah Skilton. Congratulations on such a winner, and all the best, and have fun with book tour. And I will connect you with Amy Popel for sure.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.